Hi, my name is Ziad Jahanabi. I'm a solution engineer specialized in data governance. Now, one of the challenges we face in the big data world is essentially how do you organize and how do you manage your data? Uh, Essentially, how do you prevent your data lake from turning into a data swamp? Now, in addition to Data Steward Studio's capability of automatically profiling and classifying your data for you, what Apache Atlas allows your data stewards to do is create their own classifications and taxonomies and associate those with the data assets. So, for instance, they can have things like PII classification or sensitive classification or finance classification for that matter, entirely up to them. Now, as an example over here, we've got a workflow, simple workflow for that matter, which essentially the lineage here lands the employee file within the ecosystem, does some processing happens, that data is loaded into a table, and then some derivative views are created from that particular table. Now, traditionally what would happen is, your data steward would go in and classify this particular file as, let's say, sensitive or PII. He or she would do the same thing with the employee table, US employee view, and the EU employee view. Now, this introduces the notion of classification propagation. Okay? So essentially what that means is, rather than going in there and manually tagging your different assets, what your data steward would do is only create that classification or create that tag at the root. So by tagging the employee file as PII or sensitive, essentially that classification travels with the data as it moves through your system. So employee table will inherit that PII classification or sensitive classification, and so will the different views that are derivative of that particular table. This reduces the human error as well as, it simplifies the process of actually classifying your data. Now, your data stewards have the option to actually opt out of this propagation capability altogether. If they don't want these classifications to propagate, they can do that. They can also limit the propagation at any point in time or throughout the lineage. So as an example, if your data steward decides that, they only want this classification to propagate all the way to US employees, but any derivative tables or any derivative views down the line should not have that classification, they're able to click on that entity and disable that flag. Okay, so essentially they have ultimate flexibility with regards to how fast they can propagate. Now, in terms of the classifications themselves, they'll happen at the entity level, so be it file, be it table, and can go down as low as, the column level within a Hive table. Now that you've got your data classified, it's easier to organize and it's easier to actually search it. And as we know, Atlas and Ranger integrate with each other to provide dynamic tag-based policies. So essentially what that means is, rather than setting up security policies based on your data assets and entities, what you're able to do is set up security policies based on classifications themselves. So going back to this example, traditionally, let's say it's only the HR department that has access, that should have access to all the employee data. Traditionally, what would happen is you'd have to set up a security policy that says, employee file is accessible by HR only, employee table is accessible by HR only, and same for US employee and EU employee views. Now, with the Atlas and Ranger dynamic tag-based policies, what you're able to do is say anything that's classified as PII or anything that's classified as sensitive is only accessible by HR. And this significantly reduces the amount of security policies that you need to put in place and the amount of overhead and management. So rather than setting up 4 different security policies, now all you need to do is set up 1 security policy. Thank you very much. To learn more about how you can manage and govern your data in the big data world, click on one of the links below.